My rebirth as a Christian started the moment that I turned into that parking lot and I saw those guys waving me in, goofy vests, parking lawns. I was pulling in and they were the first people that I saw from the church. It was the first indication that I was right where I was supposed to be. And I have that opportunity to be that first person from the church that says, come on, park right here. You are home. We are so happy to have you. So where it all began for me, I have that same opportunity to let it begin for other people.
My parents got divorced. I was 11 and my mom decided to go to a new church, and it was called First Baptist Church of Ocala. I really loved anything they did. I was all about it. And one of the things that they did often was camps, church camp. And one of the ones that stands out to me is Camp Big Stuff in Panama City, Florida. One night they talked about the idea of praying for a future spouse. That was the first time I'd heard about that, and it seemed kind of silly. You know, I'm 15 years old, what do I need to start thinking about a husband? Or that just wasn't something that was important to me at the time. But it stuck with me, and I can remember writing about it in my journal that it was silly, but I was gonna start doing it. And so I did. And every night, I remember it was just a simple prayer. Lord, make my husband happy and healthy and excited about me when I meet him. I met my husband now, Nick, when I was 15. Same year I went to Camp Big Stuff, funnily enough. He was easily one of the most annoying people I had ever met. But he was someone that I was very much drawn to. I wanted to sit at his lunch table. I wanted to hear his stories. We worked together at Target when we were 18 to about 20. Every Wednesday evening at 8 o'clock, he would turn on the TV in the break room and invite me in to watch Dawson's Creek.
Dawn was amazing. I'm sure that she will probably tell you that I was the most annoying guy in the class. It's not true. She just eventually lowered her standards and, you know, married me. But no, so I wasn't annoying. She was amazing. But I knew her. We just kind of hung out from time to time. In high school, you know, I was just kind of doing my thing, hanging out with friends. And then I started going to college, and it was more of that. It was going to college, hanging out with friends. Occasionally, I would hang out with Dawn. But for the most part, I was just kind of bouncing along, doing my own thing, and thinking about myself, right? She went off and married the wrong guy. And I really don't talk about this too often, but I went off and I married the wrong girl.
I was in college and I met a guy that paid attention to me. I wish there was more to that story, but there's not. He paid attention to me when no one else did. I thought that if we got married and I would be able to influence his decisions, I would be able to bring him to Jesus. I would be able to bring him to church. I would be able to just all of those things that I had thought about when I was 15 that I would be able to do. He berated me, he belittled me, he put down the God that I so put all of my hopes into. And finally, I guess I don't know, I let go of the idea that if I prayed hard enough, God would bring me this husband that was going to be the leader of our family. So I had to be that person. I eventually gave up. He gave up a long time before I did, but I feel like I did it for my babies. And if it was going to save them, it was okay to go against all these dreams that I had for this family.
You know, I realized I'd made a pretty bad decision, and I spent a lot of years trying to, right those wrongs and, turn a relationship into something that it wasn't. And so, we finally parted ways, and it was terrible. I was broken. I really didn't know what to do or who to talk to or where to go. So fast forward a little bit down the road, and Dawn and I reconnected, and man, she was still the hottest redhead that I've ever met and I've ever known in my entire life. The girl that I'd always secretly liked. We started to get into a relationship.
He was in a different place than I was spiritually. He believed in God, but that's kind of where it ended. He wasn't telling me that God didn't exist. He wasn't telling me that what I thought was stupid, Instead, he was telling me he loved my children, and if it was important to me to pray and to be surrounded by other Christians, then we'll do it. What I wanted to say was no, but I told her yes, and she was so excited. She ran home, she got me a book, and she said, "Okay, you're gonna ride with me, right?" I was like, "Oh gosh, what did I get myself into?" So I did. I went. It was so uncomfortable. It was over the top uncomfortable. I just felt sweaty and awkward and just the whole thing. It was so much. But I kept going. It was 8 weeks long, and I said I could do anything for 8 weeks. And so I did. And after that 8 weeks, I realized, hey, I like this. And I continued to go to small group. And all the while, they were pressuring me to come to church, come to church, come to church. I said, well, it's really far, guys. Like, we live in Franklin, and it's in Bellevue. It's really far. And I don't know that I can talk Nick into it. I don't think that he'll be down for that. I said, well, I'll talk to him. There was an event coming up at the church, and they just thought Nick would love it, the kids would love it. And I thought, okay, we'll do that. I'll talk him into going. And he was so resistant. But I said, we made a commitment when we moved here that we were going to try new things. And one of those things was a church, and we are going to get involved. And you told me yes, so let's do it.
So we got in the car and put in the address. 45 minutes. 45 minutes to go to church. I probably wouldn't have gone if it was 10 minutes away, but 45 minutes in traffic, not good. So I did what any selfish person would do, is said, we're not going. And got everybody out of the car, and I made that decision for me, and I made that decision for my family. We're not going to church. Man, that ate me up all week, Why didn't I just go? Why didn't I just do it? And so Sunday rolled back around. Believe it or not, it was still 45 minutes to get to church. That didn't change at all. So, again, made the big, bold decision. We're going to go to church this time. We're going to check it out. So drove to church. And as I'm pulling up, Jesus isn't out front. God's not out front. Mickey Mouse was out front. What in the world? So they were doing the Zeal Kids Weekend. I pulled in and they told me right where to park, and I parked, made it super easy. I got out, Mickey Mouse is there, princesses are there, just all sorts of crazy stuff is going on. And I remember thinking to myself, was this church?
There was people jumping up and down and raising their hands, and we were sitting in a stadium type seating in the dark. There were no hymnals. I was so out of my comfort zone. But I looked at Nick, and he was having a good time. He was smiling, he was engaged. I can't tell you what JD talked about that day, but I know that my husband was impressed, and that's what mattered. I walked away from there thinking, if I don't make a single friend at this church, it's gonna be worth every moment of going.
Looked over at my wife, man, she was happy. And for the first time in a long time, I thought, man, I'm right where I belong. And I made that decision right there that I have to be a part of this. I have to figure out a way to rekindle my relationship with God and become a part of this family. And that's what I did. From that moment, I started to connect with people at church. I started to, talk to people, to network with people, to, get involved with a small group. And I never imagined that I would have such a quirky, fun, odd, amazing, well-dressed family that I have with Zeal Church. And I'm absolutely in love with it. As
far as Nick and I's relationship, it was the hardest time in our marriage. We struggled financially, we struggled relationally, we just struggled. And then I remember the first time I mentioned it in small group, and it was like all of those ladies, their hearts broke for me. And it was such a special experience because they walked right along with me, and I had never in my adult life had people who knew me like they did.
I depended on myself quite a bit that summer, networking, looking for work, talking to people. I probably printed 500 resumes and talked to everybody I knew, every prospect I could, to try to find something. And I went to classes, I took courses on how to, get myself out there on social media, how to make my name known so people could potentially see my profile and want to hire me. I did everything I could, everything within my power, and it just wasn't enough. And, going to church and sitting in the back of church, what if I stopped depending on me? What if I stopped doing what I'd always done? I sat in church and JD talked about not only is tithing important, but tithing is a privilege. Tithing is something that we get to do, not just something we have to do. And man, that landed. And it hurt. It hurt me right here. And it hurt me in my wallet because, man, I wasn't sure of our future. I wasn't sure of what was gonna happen. And that's the Sunday that I decided, hey, I'm gonna have the privilege to give. I'm gonna give my guts out. Hitting that submit button for that number on my phone at the back of the church was one of the hardest things that I'd ever had to do. Because up until that point, I was the one in control. I was the one that made the decisions. I was the one that steered the ship that says, this is where we're going. I had 2 offers the next week for asking price. Exactly what I wanted. Those offers came within hours of each other. So if you were to tell me a year ago that I would have the opportunity to serve, I would have the opportunity to give, that I would have the opportunity to be amongst this amazingly quirky, well-dressed family, I wouldn't have believed you. But here I am. And I feel like I have purpose. And it's not just about parking cars. People can park themselves. But it's about leading people home. It's about showing them that they are right where they need to be. And so now that I have the opportunity to lead the parking team, I have that honor. I have that privilege of showing people where to go. Somebody that maybe hasn't been to church in years and they're afraid. I show them where to go. Somebody that has never been to church. I get to show them where to go. You know, somebody that, you know, is going to church because their wife's prayed for them for 15 years. I get to show them where to go. Man, that moment when somebody, you know, with the goofy vest said, hey, park here. This is where you're supposed to be. I get that privilege every Sunday, rain or shine. I get to show people that they are home. So all these years later, my wife and I are just having this conversation, and she looked at me and she said, you know what? I've been praying for you for a long time. I've been praying for you to form a relationship with God. I've been praying for you to be the man that leads our family spiritually. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. Because now I have the opportunity to say back to my wife, I'm praying for you. I have the opportunity to look at my kids, say, I'm praying for you guys. I have the opportunity to go to church and serve every Sunday and look around at my family and say, I'm praying with you guys. That's a beautiful thing, right?